Over the years, I've realized that the Ronaldo and Messi saga has been glorified so much that people have started to be unfair to them. Some say we have to appreciate them both, and I would say they're right. But the thing is, their careers are so exceptional that it's hard to truly grasp just how great they are. They have given us years of entertainment, always defying what we deem possible. They deserve to have their story told, not just by numbers, not just by their greatest moments, but by all of it, how they came to be, and how it is possible to become Cristiano Ronaldo. He's in good shape, which is typical for him, absolutely brilliant, and the story starts before he was even born, in the late 1960s. His father, who was Cape Verdean, had to serve mandatory military service. He left for Angola, where he had to fight the locals demanding independence from Portugal. The conditions for the soldiers were awful. They had no drinking water, food supplies would often rot, and they would be left to starve, not to mention how they weren't prepared to face the diseases they would find in Africa. Many soldiers died from malaria. For 18 months, his father lived amongst death and suffering. Angola eventually won the war. His dad returned home to find a different Portugal, one that had fallen into an economic pit, as they had used all their resources in the war. There were no job openings, and he was left to wander the streets of Madeira, wallowing in his own misery. Soon, he developed a drinking habit, which quickly turned into full-blown alcoholism. Over the next decade, he had 3 children with his wife, Dolores. He eventually found a job as a gardener, but also took on a side gig as a kitman for the local club, Andorinha. The family faced a major crisis when Dolores got pregnant a 4th time. They decided there was no way they could afford another child, as they were facing massive financial issues. She talked to her doctor about the possibility of having an abortion, but he disapproved. Dolores believed there was really no way to bring this child into the world, so she took matters into her own hands, as she later recounted. She attempted to force an abortion by drinking as much Southern beer as she possibly could, and going for runs, only stopping when her body wasn't able to sustain the fatigue. But she failed, and on the 5th of February 1985, at 10:20 a.m., in the city of Funchal in Madeira, a baby was born. They named him Cristiano Ronaldo. Dolores decided to keep and raise the baby, as she believed that she failed to abort him because God had a great destiny awaiting her child. Despite making it into this world, his life would not be as smooth as Dolores had anticipated. The family struggled to make ends meet every month, living in a tiny home with no electricity, where Cristiano shared a room with all 3 of his siblings. On Christmas, he would receive no gifts, so just like most Portuguese kids, Ronaldo would take to the streets to play football with the local children. Despite being very gifted, the other children would call him Crybaby, because he would get very frustrated whenever the other kids failed to play up to his standards. Seeing this, his parents took him to Andorinha, where his love for football flourished. It got to the point where he would carry a ball wherever he went. His dedication made his talent even more notable among other kids. Soon, he earned himself another nickname. They started calling him Abelhinha, or Little B, in English, because he was very small compared to other kids, but also very fast. Less than 3 years later, in 1995, Nacional, one of the biggest clubs in Madeira, signed him after hearing tales about this wonder kid from one of their scouts, who had no trouble finding him, as he was actually his godfather. His time at Nacional served to show the locals how amazing he really was. He was moved up the academy teams to the point where he ended up playing with kids 3 years older than him, and to further shock everyone, he still managed to be the captain of his team. Word spread around the island, which until then had never even had a player good enough to be called up for the national team. A kid had arrived, and he was bound to conquer the world. A local man with strong connections to Sporting CP was introduced to Ronaldo, and he was so impressed with his skills that he immediately called Aurelio Pereira, a Sporting CP scout, asking if Ronaldo could get a tryout. Aurelio agreed, but with one condition. Ronaldo had to come to Lisbon later that day. The 12-year-old talked to his mom, and soon he was leaving his humble roots to go fight for his dream. He went into training knowing he was being tested in what might have been one of the most important moments of his young life. One of the first times Ronaldo showed how well he performed under pressure was during his time at Sporting CP. He performed so magnificently among the academy players that even the professional players on the neighboring pitch moved over to watch him play, leaving the club's staff speechless. He was signed on the spot, but this led him to make the most important decision of his life. He had to leave his family at just 12 years old to live by himself at Sporting CP's academy, hoping that one day he would make it. Being from Madeira, Cristiano had a very thick accent, which he was relentlessly mocked for. He became so depressed that he was sent back to Madeira during his first year because the coaches believed he couldn't focus as long as he felt so down about it. Back in Madeira, his family showed him how much he meant to them, telling him that he had to ignore people who wished to see him fail. A young Ronaldo realized that his potential could not be wasted. The next year, he powered through his doubts and went back to Sporting CP. Eventually, the other players became like family to him. Being an 11-year-old academy player for one of the biggest Portuguese clubs might seem like a dream to many, and it surely was. But the conditions were still not the best. The rooms were very small, and Ronaldo didn't like them, so he would only go there to sleep, spending his days either on the pitch training, at school, or roaming the streets of Lisbon. Money was still tight in his early years there, to the point where he and his friends had a habit of going to the local McDonald's late at night and asking the employees for leftover burgers. Two of his most difficult years came after he hit 14 years of age. Despite the environment he created for himself at the academy, he still got bullied at school. He tried to ignore the bullying and remain calm, but one day, a teacher mocked him in front of his class for his accent. This made Ronaldo furious. He talked back, but instead of realizing how out of line his statements were, the teacher doubled down and mocked his family for being poor. Ronaldo snapped, threw a chair at the teacher, and was expelled that same day. He talked to his mom, and another big decision came from this conversation. Ronaldo decided to leave school and focus full-time on his football career. This put him under immense pressure. He could not allow himself to fail. He had to give it his all. And just like that, something out of his control nearly ruined his life. At the age of 15, Ronaldo was diagnosed with racing heart syndrome. This meant his heart would race even when he was at rest. How could he go through so much physical effort without compromising his life? That same week, Ronaldo had to undergo surgery. Imagine being a 15-year-old boy who had just left his hometown and dropped out of school in pursuit of his dream, only to face the possibility of losing that dream. Thankfully, the treatment went smoothly, and just a few days after the surgery, he was back to training. Over these years, Ronaldo proved his value so many times that he progressed through the academy's ranks, always playing with far older players than himself. This led to him being called up to the youth national teams many times, scoring a total of 18 goals over 34 appearances for the different tiers. But as he turned 16, he became eligible to play professionally. Sporting CP's coach at the time, Laszlo Bologna, would not let that opportunity be wasted. Ronaldo became the first ever player to play for the under-16, under-17, under-18, B team, and first team all in one season. However, his debut in the Portuguese league only came in 2002, a few months after he turned 17, in a match against Madrid. Ronaldo went all in, getting the ball in the net for the first time just as the game started, but it was deemed offside. He tested the keeper's reflexes once again later, and before halftime, he got the ball near the center circle, dribbled past not one, not two, but every Madrid player, and then chipped the ball over the keeper to get his first competitive goal. In that same game, He showed how much he enjoyed scoring, as he got his second goal in the last minute of the match. He finished the season with the third highest goals per minute, only behind the two main strikers, which was understandable as he played as an attacking midfielder for Sporting. His performances caught the eye of many European clubs, including Manchester United, who wanted to sign him and then loan him back to Sporting so he could keep progressing. But his fate was truly decided on the 6th of August, 2003. Sporting had built themselves a new stadium as part of their preparations for Euro 2004, and for its inauguration, they decided to invite Manchester United to play a friendly match against them. It is hard to put into words what happened that day. Ronaldo was a man on a mission. He looked simply unplayable. An 18-year-old was terrorizing the Manchester United defense. He got his first assist by the 25th minute, and by halftime, it was all the Manchester United players talked about in the locker room. The second half was equally impressive, and before the match ended, he created the chance for the third Sporting goal as they defeated Manchester United 3-1. On the plane home, Manchester United players told tales of the Portuguese wonder kid they had found, begging Sir Alex Ferguson to sign him. Only 6 days later, Ronaldo was arriving in Manchester. He was the first ever Portuguese player to be signed by Manchester United, and at $13 million, he was the most expensive teenager in English football history, surpassing another Portuguese teenager, Hugo Viana, whom Newcastle had paid $8 million for. As he was shown around the premises and dealt with the remaining bureaucracy, Ronaldo was asked to choose his shirt number. He chose the number 28, but then Sir Alex Ferguson personally spoke to him and asked him to wear the number 7. This was a sign of what was to come. Sir Alex saw in Ronaldo what the world would only witness a few years later. Ronaldo did not shy away from the pressure and would follow George Best, Eric Cantona, and more recently, David Beckham, in the task of carrying the weight of the number 7 on his back. Only 4 days after signing the contract with Manchester United, Cristiano stepped into Old Trafford for his first match as a Red Devil. 67,000 people cheered in the stands as, in the 61st minute, Sir Alex looked back onto the bench and asked Ronaldo to get ready. The 18-year-old came on in exchange for Nicky Butt, with dyed blonde streaks, tape around both his ankles, and wearing silver R9 mercurial vapors. As he chewed gum, he stepped onto the pitch, and another fairy tale began. Cristiano absolutely destroyed the opposition with a seemingly never-ending skill set. His feet seemed too fast for the human mind to process. He was so confident that by stoppage time, he even asked Phil Neville to step aside so he could take a free kick. His confidence was surely never in question. By the end of the match, George Best called it undoubtedly the most exciting debut he had ever seen. As the last few weeks seemed like a frenetic run from one meaningful day to another, just 4 days after his debut for Manchester United, Ronaldo also made his debut for the Portuguese national team in a 1-0 win over Kazakhstan. In his first season, he made 40 appearances, mostly coming from the bench, as he managed 4 goals and 9 assists. He also made his debut in the Champions League against Stuttgart, but he would crash out of the competition in the last 16 in a 2-1 defeat against Porto, who went on to win the competition. His last 2 matches of the season were the most notable, as he scored in both, getting his first red card in the first of the 2, a league game against Aston Villa, and winning his first trophy in the second, as he scored the opening goal in the FA Cup final. As summer arrived, it was time for another big challenge. Cristiano was called up for Euro 2004, the first ever to be played in Portugal. Imagine you are 19 years old, and you are put on a bus that will drive across your homeland. You look around, and the other people on it are Ballon d'Or and Champions League winners, legends known all around the world. You look out the window, and there are thousands swarming the bus, no matter how far from the stadium you might be. Euro 2004 was one of the most magical and memorable moments in Portuguese football. Everyone came together to witness the golden generation power through the competition. Throughout that tournament, Portugal truly played with 12 men on the pitch. Ronaldo was no average young man. He would not let himself fall under pressure. From the first game, he came in from the bench and scored Portugal's only goal as they lost against Greece. Then, they played Russia, and once again, Ronaldo came in late and assisted Rui Costa as he doubled Portugal's lead. In the last match of the group stage, they beat Spain as Ronaldo was part of the starting lineup. Just like that, Portugal was 3 matches away from possibly becoming European champions on their own turf. The quarter-final match started in the worst way possible, as Michael Owen put England in front just 3 minutes into the match. Both teams battled each other for 80 minutes, only to be saved by Helder Postiga, who came off the bench to equalize. The game would go into extra time, and the drama did not stop there. Rui Costa would score 10 minutes before the end, but Portugal would not manage to hold that lead, as Frank Lampard would tie the match once again. It was time to play the roulette. The game would be decided on penalties. David Beckham missed the first, Rui Costa missed as well, and Portugal advanced to the semi-finals, where they would meet the Netherlands. This would be Ronaldo's best match during the competition, as Portugal won 2-1, with Ronaldo scoring the first goal and then assisting the second, leading Portugal to their first ever major final at the age of 19. This was a character-building moment for Cristiano. With all the odds in favor of Portugal, they went into the final, but lost. Cristiano Ronaldo's obsession with perfection became obvious to everyone for the first time. He succumbed in the center of the pitch, unable to contain himself, and began crying, seemingly immune to the consolation of his teammates. In the press conference, he promised the Portuguese people that he would make up for the disappointment. His second season at United followed a similar path as the first, with not much success trophy-wise, as they only won the League Cup, but there were many sparks of brilliance from Cristiano. The most iconic moment of this season came when he met Arsenal at the start of 2005. The game began with Patrick Vieira scoring after 9 minutes. Giggs equalized, and Bergkamp gave Arsenal the lead later on. Right before halftime, Cristiano got into a fight with Thierry Henry, as he refused to give the ball back when it went out of bounds. This upset the Arsenal fans, who booed Ronaldo for the rest of the match. Ronaldo famously once said, "Your love makes me strong, but your hate makes me unstoppable." And he showed what an unstoppable Ronaldo looked like by immediately scoring 2 goals in 4 minutes. Just like that, Ronaldo put Man United in front, an incredible feat for a 19-year-old, and even more incredible as he dared to celebrate his goal by telling the Arsenal fans to stay quiet. The next season would be a difficult one. Ronaldo constantly found himself in trouble. In the Champions League, he traveled to Lisbon to play against Sporting's rivals, Benfica, who didn't spare him from the usual taunting. To make matters worse, they beat Manchester United, knocking them out of the Champions League in the group stage for the first time in a decade. This upset Ronaldo, who raised his middle finger to the fans as he was subbed off in the 67th minute, earning him a 1-match ban for his actions. He was also embroiled in unfounded rape allegations, which were dropped as the police found no evidence. These are the same allegations that would follow him for over a decade. He got sent off in a Manchester derby for kicking ex-United player Andy Cole. It was also the first time Ronaldo clashed with Ruud van Nistelrooy, which was most likely not Ronaldo's fault, as Van Nistelrooy was known for being problematic and envious of Ronaldo, who seemed to have stolen his spotlight over the last few years. You might wonder where all of this erratic behavior stemmed from. If you look at the time frame of Ronaldo's life, there was clearly a dramatic event that directly preceded all of this: the death of his father. Ronaldo claimed to barely know him. As I mentioned, his father was a heavy drinker, and that would be his demise at just 52 years old, as years of liver damage caught up to him. Ronaldo has said that he dreamt of one day having his father see him succeed. It's hard to pinpoint the source of this desire, but most likely, he just hoped that he would be able to pull him away from the dark path he was following. Regardless, it was too late, and his life had to move on. That summer, Ronaldo was called up for the World Cup for the first time ever. Portugal easily topped their group, winning all their matches, with Ronaldo scoring his first World Cup goal against Iran. Once again, they met the Netherlands, this time in the last 16. This match will forever be known as the Battle of Nuremberg. The match was instantly notable for how violent the Netherlands players were, with the first yellow card coming in the second minute. It all escalated as Dutch defender Khalid Boulahrouz injured Ronaldo, who had to be escorted off the pitch. This foul seemed intentionally excessive, and the Portuguese players furiously fought back. The match became a never-ending sequence of bookings with every foul being more horrific than the one that came before it. By the end of the match, there had been 16 bookings, including 4 red cards, both being all-time records in the competition. If you think that the next round could not match the drama seen in the last 16, well, you're wrong. As Portugal faced England for their quarter-final match, Rooney eventually stepped on Ricardo Carvalho, and Ronaldo was seen pleading with the referee to send off Rooney, to which he conceded. Seeing this, Rooney got upset at his Manchester United teammate and confronted him on the pitch before being sent off. By this moment, Ronaldo was already public enemy number 1 in England, and all became much worse when he was seen winking at the bench. Still, Portugal won and moved to the semi-finals, where they met France. Portugal dominated the match, having twice as many shots on target and the edge in terms of ball possession, but one moment defined the match. Ricardo Carvalho slipped and ended up fouling Henry, leading to a penalty that Zidane converted. This was even harder to digest for Portuguese fans since, in the first minutes of the match, there arguably was a penalty that should have been awarded to Portugal. Back in England, Ronaldo felt overwhelmed by the hate he was receiving. It took a toll on him, especially as Alex Ferguson did not come out to defend him. This led to a drastic decision. Ronaldo publicly announced that he wanted to leave Manchester United for either Real Madrid or Barcelona. At this moment, Ferguson was forced to intervene. He had a private talk with Ronaldo, and he eventually decided to stay. Soon, it became clear that this was one of his best decisions. Right in his first season after the incident, despite the boos, despite the hate, Ronaldo took his game to an all-new level, notably showing up to the preseason much stronger than before. Known for being the fast, skillful, scrawny kid, he now looked muscular and rugged. This season, he nearly doubled his previous goal-scoring record. He won consecutive Player of the Month awards, and despite all the drama, his relationship with Rooney looked better than ever on the pitch, as the duo led United to a Premier League title and showed how capable this team was by making it all the way to the semi-finals of the Champions League, where they lost to AC Milan, who were nearly unbeatable at the time. And just like that, we arrived at the 2007-2008 season. Ronaldo improved on his form even further, and by the end of 2007, he had amassed 40 goal contributions in 50 games, which earned him second place in the Ballon d'Or, only behind Kaká. But Ronaldo was never one to be happy with second place. For the rest of the season, he showed us how hard he could push himself. In January, he got his first hat-trick against Newcastle. Then he scored one of the most memorable free kicks the Premier League has seen against Portsmouth. In the Champions League, he carried Manchester United throughout the group stage, scoring 5 goals in the 5 matches he played. As they went into the knockout stages, he scored in the last 16 against Lyon, a goal that turned the tie around, granting them access to the quarter-finals, where they destroyed Roma 3-0 on aggregate, with Ronaldo scoring 1 more. Then they met Barcelona, who became the only team Ronaldo didn't score against. Still, they won by a minimal margin, as Scholes got a single goal over the 2 legs. Great players prove themselves on the biggest stages, and so far, Ronaldo had failed. But now it looked different. He had ascended to a new level and looked like a new player. It was time for the Champions League final, and Manchester United faced Chelsea in the first ever final, between two English teams. It didn't take long for Ronaldo to show he was there to win. By the 26th minute, he towered over the defenders and scored the first goal of the match with a magnificent header. Man United absolutely dominated the match. Chelsea only stayed afloat, as they were saved by Peter Cech over and over again. But against the flow of the match, Lampard managed Chelsea's only shot on target after 2 consecutive deflections, and by pure luck, they tied the game. They managed to maintain the draw, and the match was decided on penalties. Despite his great performance throughout the match, Ronaldo missed his penalty. The tension rose as John Terry came to the spot to take his penalty, knowing that if he scored, Chelsea would be champions of Europe. And then, he slipped, quite literally. As they went into sudden death, Van der Sar saved Anelka's penalty, and Manchester United won the Champions League. United would be crowned champions of Europe. It took years of crafting his body, evolving and developing the strongest mindset football has seen, but Ronaldo had ascended to become the champion of Europe. He was the top scorer of the Champions League, being voted player of the match in the final. Domestically, he would be equally dominant, leading Manchester United to a second consecutive Premier League title, and breaking the all-time record for most goals in a Premier League season with 31, despite missing 3 matches due to a ban after headbutting a player. At the start of the season, he would total 51 goal involvements in 49 matches across all competitions. That year, he nearly won everything a player can possibly win, including his first Ballon d'Or, where he managed to get nearly 200 more points than second-place Lionel Messi. This would certainly not be the last time these two would fight for the title. It was time for another Portuguese assault at the Euros. This would be a very meaningful competition for Ronaldo, as it would be the first time he would captain the national team and wear the number 7 shirt for Portugal, following Luis Figo's retirement. Despite breezing through the group stage, the tournament would not go Portugal's way. They would meet Germany in the quarterfinals, who have been known to always cause Portugal trouble, and as usual, Portugal would be knocked out in a 3-2 loss. In the following months, Real Madrid would start a conversation with Ronaldo. Manchester United, fearful of losing their star player, would take legal action to stop him from leaving. Initially, there would be problems between the club and the player, leading FIFA president Sepp Blatter to call it modern-day slavery. It would all end with Sir Alex Ferguson convincing Ronaldo to stay for 1 more year, with Ronaldo promising the fans he had committed his heart and soul to retaining the Champions League trophy. Unfortunately, the season would start poorly, with Ronaldo missing 11 games due to a fractured kneecap. Despite this, upon his return, he would look as powerful as ever, scoring 2 free-kick goals in the same match for the first time in his career, a feat he would manage to replicate 3 times over the next 3 years. By the end of the year, it would all be worth it, as United won the Club World Cup, with Ronaldo providing an assist in the final. In the Champions League, they would once again be one of the strongest teams in Europe. They first beat Inter Milan, with Ronaldo scoring the second goal, then faced Porto, who stunned them in the first leg with a 2-goal draw. This draw would only be broken by Ronaldo, who, in ludicrous fashion, scored from about 4 meters in front of the center circle, leaving the goalkeeper with no chance. By the end of the year, this goal would win the Puskás Award and be remembered as one of the most insane goals ever witnessed in the Champions League. In the semi-finals, they would blaze through Arsenal with Ronaldo scoring twice, reaching the final. The key moment came in a match against Barcelona, where Ronaldo and Messi met once again. This time, there was no stopping him from leaving. Ronaldo was signed by Real Madrid for a world record fee of $94 million, crushing Zidane's 8-year-long record of $77 million. That same year, Florentino Perez would also spend huge amounts of money on Kaká and Benzema, aiming to recreate the success of Los Galacticos. His contract would make him the highest-paid footballer in the world, nearly doubling what he earned at Manchester United. This contract would also be notable for defining his release clause at $1 billion. On July 6, 2009, Ronaldo would step onto the Santiago Bernabeu for the first time, shattering the all-time record for the biggest audience at a player's presentation set by Diego Armando Maradona, as 80,000 fans awaited Cristiano Ronaldo that day. Club legend Alfredo Di Stefano would present Ronaldo with the number 9 shirt, not the number 7, as club legend and all-time top goalscorer Raúl was still playing for Real at the time. Soon after, Ronaldo would make his debut against Deportivo de La Coruña, scoring his first goal from the penalty spot. He would also score in his first 4 league games, becoming the first ever player to do so for Real Madrid. He would also score 2 free-kick goals in his debut for Real Madrid in the Champions League. His blazing start to the season would be interrupted by an ankle injury, leaving him out for 7 weeks. Upon his return, it would be time for the Ballon d'Or ceremony, where Messi would outperform him for the first time, with Ronaldo only managing second place, despite scoring 7 goals in the Champions League. 6 Champions League matches. Real would be out of the competition in the last 16 round by the last game of the season. Real and Barcelona would have only 1 point difference, but Real would draw the last match, collecting 96 points, despite the second-place finish. This would have been enough to beat the record for most points in a season, if it were not for Barcelona, managing 99. Despite the great performances, managing 39 goal involvements in 35 games, Ronaldo would end his first season with Real Madrid without winning any trophies. Try to compete hard and try to win. I'm like that, you know? I never change because I like this. I like what I do. 2 years had passed since the last international competition, and it was time for the 2010 World Cup. He would be man of the match in all 3 matches of the group stage, but once again, Portugal would be knocked out by Spain in the first round, who would go on to win the competition. Raúl had left Real Madrid at this point, and naturally Ronaldo would take on the number 7 shirt. It would start the season on a roll, getting 4 goals in a game for the first time in his career against Racing Santander. He would also get 3 more hat tricks before the Ballon d'Or ceremony, but he still would not make the podium despite getting 65 goal contributions in 59 games that year. This was probably the best ever performance, not to be rewarded with a spot on the podium. That year, Real Madrid got paired up with Barcelona in both the Champions League and the Capital Rey, while also playing them for the league, totaling 4 matches against Barcelona in the same month. Ronaldo would score in the league game to tie the match. Then he would score the only goal in the final of the Copa del Rey, a magnificent, towering header in extra time to bring the trophy to Madrid. But it would fail to save Real Madrid, as Barcelona knocked them out of the Champions League before going on to win the tournament. Before the end of the season, he would score 3 more hat tricks, including 4 goals against Sevilla. Once again, despite managing 92 points, Ronaldo shattered the goal-scoring record in the league, becoming the first ever player to get 40 league goals. Real would not win the league, but still, Ronaldo would become the first ever player to win the Golden Boot in 2 different leagues. As 40 league goals seemed impossible to repeat, Ronaldo would manage 46 the following season and would finally manage to get Real Madrid to win the league, getting 100 points and smashing the all-time record. Ronaldo would total 60 goals in all competitions that season, 10 of them in a Champions League in which Real got knocked out in the semi-finals once again, as 2 goals from Ronaldo weren't enough to save them against Bayern. This season would be most notable for Ronaldo scoring the winning goal in the Old Classic while doing the iconic Calma Calma celebration. In Euro 2012, Portugal got drawn into the group of death, including Germany and the Netherlands. Still, they would make it through as Ronaldo scored twice, turning the game around against the Dutch national team. Ronaldo would be man of the match against the Suske Republic, as he scored the only goal of the match to get Portugal into the semi-finals, where they would face Spain. It would be a very tight game, with Ronaldo standing out as he got close to scoring on several occasions, but no one would get the ball on the net. and the game would go to penalties. It would all be over as Bruno Alves would hit the bar, and Spain would go on to the final, leaving everyone feeling like Portugal deserved more, especially as Portugal had beaten them 4-0 in their previous friendly. It had been years of massive disappointments for Ronaldo. Messi had taken the last Tribal d'Ors and was bound to take the next, as Ronaldo kept losing inches away from glory. The next season would be the start of a shift. Ronaldo would become a deadlier, more decisive version of himself. At the start of the season, he would score 2 goals to get Real Madrid the Super Cup as they faced Barcelona. Then, he would get his first Champions League hat-trick against Ajax. Later that year, he would get a brace in El Clásico, becoming the first ever player to score in 6 consecutive El Clásicos. In 2013, he would captain Real Madrid for the first time, and also become the first ever non-Spanish player to captain Real Madrid in El Clásico in 60 years. Regardless of his performances, he would fail to win La Liga, and would once again fail to go past the semi-finals in the Champions League, going down to Dortmund despite scoring 12 goals that season, 7 of them in the 6 knockout matches he played. The next season, he would be joined by Gareth Bale would cost Real Madrid $100 million, beating Ronaldo's transfer record. This would begin the reign of BBC, Madrid's front three, consisting of Bale, Benzema, and Cristiano Ronaldo. They would start the season with 32 goals in 22 matches, with the most memorable moments coming from an international playoff against Sweden. The media would take the opportunity to heavily market this match as a direct confrontation between Ronaldo and Ibrahimovic, as both national teams were known to heavily rely on their star players. In the first leg, Ronaldo would score the only goal, giving the lead to Portugal. But the second leg would prove to be much more eventful. The match started calmly, with a couple of notable moments, but it truly ignited in the second half. A beautiful through pass by Moutinho, followed by a great run by Ronaldo, would make it 1-0. Ibrahimovic didn't shy away from confrontation, scoring twice in 4 minutes, first with a header, and then with a free kick that went under the wall. Great moments come when great players are put under pressure to perform, and that is just what happened that day. Ronaldo would follow Zlatan's lead and get a second goal with a lightning-fast run, before completing his hat-trick and securing Portugal's spot at the World Cup. As the year came to an end, Ronaldo would total 86 goal contributions in 59 appearances, truly undeniable. He would once again manage to top Messi and win his second Ballon d'Or. The rest of the season would be even more impressive. Despite losing the league title to Atletico Madrid, who managed just 3 more points, internationally, it would be one of Ronaldo's most memorable years. It started well, as he scored a hat-trick in the first Champions League game of the season against Galatasaray, followed by 2 goals against Copenhagen, and another 2 against Juventus. To finish it all, he scored 1 each against both Juventus and Copenhagen when they met for the second time. If he had not missed the game against Galatasaray, he could have become the first ever player to score in all matches of the group stage. In the last 16, he would score 4 against Schalke, totaling 13 goals, already more than he had ever scored, and only Messi had managed more throughout an entire tournament, despite Ronaldo still being only in the last 16 round. Then, despite missing one of the matches against Dortmund, he would still manage to score against them. As they went on to meet Bayern in the semi-finals, Ronaldo would score twice, becoming the first ever player to break the 15-goal mark in a single season. To this, he would add another legendary celebration. It was time for the final, where they would meet Atletico, who had taken the league title. This would be Real Madrid's 10th ever Champions League title, known as La Décima. Their search for this trophy had become the stuff of legends. It was played in Portugal at the Estádio da Luz, where Eusébio, the Portuguese legend, had had his funeral earlier that year, a man who was one of Ronaldo's favorite players and had been a mentor to him over the years with the national team. The pressure was on, and to make matters worse for Ronaldo, he would get injured before the match. Everyone expected him to miss the match, but Ronaldo has made it a habit to be exceptional. To this moment he would say, "In life, you do not win without sacrifices, and you must take risks," as he went on to play the final through injury. The game started in the worst way possible, as Godin gave Atletico the lead. The game progressed until the very last minute, without a change to the score sheet, and as Atletico fans prepared to start celebrating, Modric stepped up to take a corner, and the rest will never be forgotten. Applause. "Sergio Ramos, unbelievable in the nick of time," said Gary Neville. Sergio Ramos absolutely broke the spirit of Atletico Madrid players. The extra time would be a massacre. First Marcelo, then Bale, and finally Ronaldo, with a penalty to end it all. Madrid were champions of Europe, as Ronaldo finished the tournament with 17 goals, the most ever scored by anyone in a single season. Despite only 2 players ever managing more than 12, Ronaldo had absolutely destroyed those records. That day, Ronaldo certainly made those like Eusebio proud. May the Black Panther never be forgotten. As per usual, it was time for the World Cup. This would be Ronaldo's most underwhelming tournament, as he forced himself to play in it, despite suffering from 2 different injuries. One of them would change his career forever, massively hurting his pace and dribbling ability. But the greats always manage to overcome whatever is put between them. In that tournament, Ronaldo was in such poor physical condition that he had to quit practice twice in the days before the opening match, where Portugal would get destroyed 4-0 by Germany. Even then, he still managed to save Portugal from a loss against the United States with a last-minute assist, and then secured a late win by scoring in the final few minutes of their match against Ghana. However, it would not be enough, as Portugal would be knocked out of the tournament on goal difference. In the next season, Ronaldo would maintain his form, scoring both goals as Real Madrid beat Sevilla 2-0 in the UEFA Super Cup, and then going on to score 15 goals in the first 8 matches in the league. He would end the year by winning the Club World Cup before going on to win his 3rd Ballon d'Or. The 2014-2015 season would be the least impressive of his last 5 at Real Madrid. They would finish 2nd in the league and would go out in the semi-finals as Juventus beat them by a single goal, despite Ronaldo scoring 2 goals against them and managing to finish as the top scorer of the tournament. He would also score 5 goals in a match for the first time in his career, even managing to score an 8-minute hat-trick against Granada. In terms of goal scoring, the season would be one of his most impressive, as he would win the Golden Shoe once again and beat his own goal-scoring record, managing to score 61 goals that season and being involved in 68 across the 53 matches he played. Keep in mind that by then, he was already 30 years old. That just shouldn't have been possible. After this season, Zidane would take over, and he would completely change how Ronaldo played. Zidane showed him that with his age coming into play, he would lose his explosiveness, and that he had to switch to a more central role, where he did not depend on his strength as much, and where he could develop his deadliness in front of goal. In summary, Zidane created a monster. By the beginning of the 2015-2016 season, Ronaldo would get his 324th goal for Real Madrid, becoming their all-time top scorer. It had taken 16 seasons and 741 matches for Raúl to achieve this mark. It only took Ronaldo a little more than 6 seasons and 310 matches to overtake him, as he managed more than 1 goal per game played. From the start of this Champions League venture under Zidane, Ronaldo looked virtually unbeatable as he managed to score 11 goals in the 6 group stage matches he played. No player had ever managed to reach double figures in the group stage. Then he would score in both legs against Roma, but oddly enough, their next game against underdogs Wolfsburg would prove to be the most challenging. The first leg was a disaster, with Real losing 2-0. They needed a comeback in the second leg, and of course, one man had to put his foot forward and show everyone how to be truly decisive. By the 17th minute of the second leg, Ronaldo had already scored twice, first with a tap-in and then with a header from a corner. They needed one more goal, and this time, Ronaldo would be more patient. By the 77th minute, it would be worth it. A free kick. Cristiano Ronaldo, beautiful, beautiful, something close to genius. He's turned the tie around. Applause. This could have been his most legendary Champions League campaign, but he would once again suffer fitness issues, missing out on the semi-final matches. However, he would come back in time for the final, where they would once again face Atletico Madrid. This final would be the opposite of the first one. This time, Sergio Ramos would score early, and Atletico Madrid would get the equalizer later on. But Real wouldn't budge in the same way Atletico did in 2014. The game would go all the way to a penalty shootout, where Ronaldo would save himself for last. By the fourth penalty, Juanfran would miss, giving Real the advantage. It was time for Ronaldo to take the penalty spot and, as per usual, end Atletico's hopes. Once again, champions of Europe. It seemed like the perfect season, but this was nowhere near its peak. In the summer, Ronaldo would take on Euro 2016. No one gave Portugal much of a chance, as they had one of their most underwhelming lineups in decades. But someone once said, "When you have Ronaldo, you always have a chance." The first two games were underwhelming, as Portugal only managed 2 draws against Iceland and Austria. Still, Portugal only depended on themselves to go through. As long as they beat Hungary, they would have a spot in the quarterfinals. But the game would start horribly, as Portugal conceded in the 19th minute. It would take a while. Portugal managed to respond as Ronaldo assisted Nani for a goal in the 42nd minute, but it wouldn't last long as Hungary scored again just 5 minutes later. The back and forth continued as Ronaldo leveled the game once more with a superb backheel goal. Once again, the tie was only kept for another 5 minutes as Hungary regained the lead. Fernando Santos subbed in Quaresma, Ronaldo's longtime friend, known for their connection. The duo didn't disappoint. Quaresma's first touch on the ball was a cross to Ronaldo, who headed it in to settle the score at a 3-3 draw. Portugal kept third place and barely made it to the last 16. In the round of 16, Portugal and Croatia proved to be worthy opponents, as the game went into extra time with no goals scored. Once again, the duo solved the game as Ronaldo got a shot on target, and Quaresma got the rebound to take Portugal to the quarterfinals. Portugal still hadn't managed to win a single game in 90 minutes, and Poland would not be the exception. Lewandowski scored in the 2nd minute, but the game ended in a tie as 18-year-old Renato Sanchez scored the equalizer. In the penalty shootout, Portugal took the win, and Rui Patricio saved Błaszczykowski's effort before Quaresma scored to capitalize on the mistake. Portugal was through to the semi-finals, where they finally won a game in regular time, as Ronaldo got a goal and an assist in under 3 minutes to kill the game. 12 years later, Ronaldo had another shot at a Euro final. He had gone from an 18-year-old kid uncontrollably crying on the pitch to a grown 32-year-old master of the game. Unfortunately, the final had a similarly catastrophic start, as Ronaldo had to come off injured after just 25 minutes. Most players would crumble in their own misery, but not Ronaldo. He rose and spent the entire match yelling commands from the sidelines like a true captain. By the 79th minute, Eder was told to come in. Ronaldo took it upon himself to motivate him before he walked onto the pitch, telling him he knew he had it in him, that he knew Eder would score the winning goal. Ronaldo gave him the strength and energy he needed, which was vital. And those are not my words, but actually Eder's. In extra time, Eder did just that. He didn't need much help. Oh, he doesn't need any help. Eder, who rarely scores, has scored maybe the biggest goal in the history of the Portugal national team, the commentators exclaimed. Finally, Portugal became European champions, the greatest night of Cristiano Ronaldo's career, which had the worst possible start. It showed the world that you should truly never give up, no matter how unlikely your success might seem. Ronaldo finished the tournament with the highest ever percentage of goal contribution in a victorious run, as he was involved in 66% of the goals scored over the tournament. However, he still did not win Player of the Tournament due to the injury picked up during the Euro 2016 final. Due to this injury, Ronaldo missed the first 3 matches of the season, including the European Super Cup. This would be a wild-card year, in terms of his performances. Ronaldo would destroy the Club World Cup, even becoming the first ever player to score a hat-trick in the final. However, in the Champions League, he experienced some of his worst form ever. Despite scoring in the first 2 matches, he went on a 6-match dry streak, all the way to the quarter-finals. Messi was already on 11 goals by then, 9 ahead of Ronaldo. It seemed impossible that he could catch up, especially with the competition so tough. But there is no such thing as impossible when it comes to Cristiano Ronaldo. In the next match, Real Madrid faced Bayern Munich, and Ronaldo scored twice to get the comeback for Real, who started the game by conceding. In the second leg, Ronaldo was even more deadly, scoring a hat-trick. That's 5 goals in 2 matches against the unbeatable Manuel Neuer, as Ronaldo seemed to have an acquired taste for tearing world-class goalkeepers to shreds. He scored another hat-trick against Atletico Madrid and their star goalkeeper Jan Oblak. Soon, it was time for the final, where they would face Juventus, and Ronaldo needed 1 goal to get on level with Lionel Messi. Between Ronaldo and that achievement stood not only Gianluigi Buffon, one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time, but also one of the greatest defensive formations of the decade. As Ronaldo came onto the pitch, he needed only 1 touch to get his first goal. This man was taking on the impossible and playing around with it as if the world meant nothing to him. He scored 1 more goal before the end of the match to get his tally up to 12 goals, 1 more than Lionel Messi, with 10 of them coming in his last 5 matches. Against some of the biggest names in Europe, this would be the 5th consecutive season Ronaldo would be the top scorer of the Champions League. To cap off this perfect season, he would also win La Liga for the 2nd time. In the summer, Ronaldo took part in the Confederations Cup, but it was a disaster as Portugal lost the first knockout match on penalties against Chile. Ronaldo even left the competition early, as his twins had just been born. He would take part in a memorable Spanish Super Cup at the start of the season, starting from the bench and being brought on later. He would have a massive impact on the match, quickly getting his first goal, but it was called offside, to which he protested. However, not for long. Soon, Messi tied the match, but Ronaldo instantly clapped back with a magnificent run, ending with a shot from outside the box. He celebrated the goal by iconically taking off his shirt and showing the name on the back to the Barcelona supporters, in the same fashion Messi had done in the previous El Clásico. As per usual, he got a yellow card for it. Ronaldo seemed on fire, nearly scoring 2 minutes later, only to be stopped as Umtiti shoved him in the penalty box. As the commentator shouted, "Penalty," the referee somehow concluded that Ronaldo simulated a foul and gave him his 2nd yellow card, followed by sending him off. Understandably frustrated, Ronaldo pushed the referee, and just like that, what could have been the perfect night was ruined by incompetent referees. To make matters worse, he was banned for 5 games. Despite this, Ronaldo maintained his form as he once again looked to do the impossible in the Champions League. For him, winning it 3 times in 4 years wasn't enough. He started the Champions League with 2 goals against Apoel, then 2 goals against Dortmund, 1 in each of the 2 matches against Tottenham, another 2 against Apoel, and ended the group stage with another 1 against Dortmund, totaling 9 goals in 6 matches. He became the first ever player to score in all of the group stage matches. It still wasn't enough. Ronaldo scored 3 goals in the round of 16 against PSG, including a puzzling penalty where he hit the ground with such force that the ball rose from it before he struck it. Before this, Ronaldo also went to Paris to receive his 5th Ballon d'Or in a special ceremony set on the Eiffel Tower, equaling Messi as the player with the most awards. The quarterfinals that year were some of the most important and memorable matches of Ronaldo's career. Once again, he faced Juventus, who had come to be some of his favorite opponents, and he showed them just why. In under 3 minutes, Ronaldo opened the scoresheet. Juventus were truly hopeless when facing him. They were brave, worthy opponents, but Ronaldo was their boogeyman. By then, Juventus supporters were already contemplating whether or not they could have any hard feelings for such a great player, and Ronaldo showed them that they surely couldn't. In the 64th minute, he scored the most iconic goal of his career. After a magnificent run to catch a ball that seemed lost, Ronaldo passed the ball back to Lucas Vázquez, who shot, and as Buffon's defense deflected the ball towards Carvajal, he crossed it, and Ronaldo performed the most technically perfect bicycle kick football has ever seen. Like an Olympic gymnast, Ronaldo seemed to be in total control of his body. As he celebrated, Juventus supporters applauded him. His genius was too evident to be overlooked. Later in the game, even Buffon congratulated him, jokingly asking how old he was, to which Ronaldo replied, "Not too bad for a 33-year-old, huh?" The second leg proved to be equally thrilling, as Mandzukic inspired Juventus to a comeback. But before the end of the 90 minutes, Ronaldo salvaged the ball as he towered over Alex Sandro. Lucas Vázquez was left in front of the goal, and Benatia had no choice but to foul him. Buffon, who had never made it to a Champions League final, lost his mind as he watched the opportunity slip away once again, leading to him being sent off after cursing out the referee. Szczęsny took Buffon's place in goal, where he couldn't stop Ronaldo, who hammered it into the top corner in the 98th minute to send Real Madrid to the semi-finals. This was Ronaldo's 11th consecutive game scoring in the Champions League, breaking Ruud van Nistelrooy's previous record of 9 consecutive games. In the semi-finals, Bayern Munich heavily marked Ronaldo, fully aware of the form he was in. As a result, Ronaldo was unable to score against Bayern Munich, but Real Madrid would barely edge past the Germans to make it once again to the Champions League final. The final followed a similar pattern to the semi-finals, but a horrendous performance by Liverpool goalkeeper Loris Karius made it easier for Real Madrid, who took their 3rd consecutive Champions League title, something that hadn't happened in 42 years. Ronaldo once again finished as the top scorer, managing the 2nd-best tally ever seen, only outdone by his own record of 16 goals in a season. This final would be marked by Ronaldo hinting for the first time that this might have been his last match for Real Madrid. Amidst all the rumors he had stirred, Ronaldo went on to participate in the 2018 World Cup. The competition began with Portugal facing rival Spain, and the match started in the best way possible for Ronaldo, as he was fouled in the penalty box on the first play of the match. He calmly converted the penalty, putting Portugal in front. Later on, Diego Costa equalized, but Ronaldo responded with a goal from outside the box, made easier by De Gea's error. Diego Costa would again equalize for Spain, and this time, Ronaldo couldn't respond quickly enough, as Spain scored again through a powerful strike by Nacho. The key moment came in the 88th minute, when Ronaldo stepped up to take a free kick, and as usual, he didn't disappoint, curling it into the top corner to secure a draw before full time. This would be remembered as one of the best performances of the World Cup, as Ronaldo became the first player ever to score a hat-trick against Spain in the competition. In the second match, Portugal faced Morocco and won with a single goal by Ronaldo. The last group stage match ended in a draw, and Portugal qualified for the round of 16, where they fell short and lost by 1 goal against Uruguay. After the World Cup, the rumors were proven true, as Ronaldo left Real Madrid for Juventus in a transfer worth 110 million. The cheers from the Juventus fans must have truly touched his heart, as the 34-year-old Ballon d'Or winner made the move to Italy. This transfer made him the most expensive player ever, over 30 years of age, and Italy's most expensive ever transfer. In his first season at Juventus, his numbers dropped, but he certainly did not disappoint, scoring all of Juventus's Champions League knockout stage goals, the second most of any player in the competition, despite Juventus only making it to the quarterfinals. It was nearly impossible to carry Juventus alone. His most iconic game came in the round of 16, when Juventus lost the first leg by 2 goals against Atletico Madrid. It seemed like they would finally beat Cristiano Ronaldo, who was notably their nemesis. Consider that ever since Simeone began coaching Atletico Madrid, they had only been knocked out of the Champions League by teams that included Cristiano Ronaldo. There had been 4 matches between them, and Ronaldo always took the lead. Not only that, but Atletico had never conceded a hat-trick to any other player except Ronaldo, who had done it 4 different times. As you probably already know, this time was no different. By the 27th minute of the second leg, a powerful jump allowed Ronaldo to score his first goal. After halftime, another header gave Juventus a 2-0 lead. Despite Oblak getting his hand on the ball, it was too late, as it had already crossed the goal line. Juventus needed a third goal, and Ronaldo once again became the hat-trick hero, scoring a penalty in the 86th minute. Showing no emotion, Ronaldo slammed it past Oblak. In his first year in Italy, he was named the best forward and best player in the league, as he took home the Super Cup and league titles, becoming the first ever player to win titles in 3 of Europe's top 5 leagues. In the summer, Ronaldo took on a new challenge as Portugal qualified for the Final 4 of the Nations League. First, they faced Switzerland, where Ronaldo scored his usual hat-trick to get Portugal into the final. There, Gonçalo Guedes scored the only goal, and Ronaldo climbed the stage to lift Portugal's second-ever international trophy. Ronaldo finished as the top scorer of the competition and won the award for best goal of the competition, with every goal on the podium scored by himself. That's the definition of dominance, and just like that, we arrive at the present year, where Ronaldo, at 35 years old, is Europe's top scorer so far, with 25 goals in 25 matches. He has scored in 11 straight league games to tie the all-time record in Serie A and managed to score and assist in every game from December 1st up to July 16th, despite a dip in form following the mid-season break. By the end of the league season, he would win it once more, while also becoming the first ever Juventus player to score 30-plus league goals since 1952 and setting their all-time record for most goals in a season with 37. Despite once again being knocked out early in the Champions League, Ronaldo delivered an amazing performance against Lyon and finished the season as the only player ever to score in every Champions League knockout stage. Ronaldo is an inspiration to everyone. He doesn't shy away from responsibility, takes what is deemed humanly possible, and surpasses it. He is not just a legendary footballer, not just a standard of excellence for any sportsman. He is a legend in his own way. Some players are great dribblers, some are great goal scorers, and some understand every detail of the game, but Ronaldo does it all. If we took on the task of designing the prototype for the ideal footballer, we would get Cristiano Ronaldo. No matter how long I make this documentary, it is nearly impossible to show you how absolutely mind-blowing his career is. We are talking over 700 career goals. That's nearly 100 more than Griezmann, Salah, and Bale put together. Nearly 100 of those goals were scored while playing for the national team, having surpassed every European player ever in international goals. That's 3 times as many international goals as Diego Armando Maradona himself. Over his career, he has amassed 42 goals past the quarterfinals of the Champions League. That's even crazier when you put it into perspective that second-place Lionel Messi only managed 20, which would already be a crazy stat in itself. That's 55 individual awards and 31 titles, 14 of which are international titles, including 5 Champions Leagues and 2 international trophies with Portugal. He has scored more goals with just his head and left foot than Ronaldinho managed at the club level throughout the 17 years he played professionally. We're talking about a 35-year-old who is one of the biggest candidates for the Ballon d'Or. He entered the UEFA Team of the Season for the first time ever, with players like Cafu and Nesta, and nearly 2 decades later, he's still in it with players like Kylian Mbappe and Alexander-Arnold. That's unmatched longevity. It doesn't matter if Cristiano Ronaldo is the greatest of all time or not. What matters is that he inspired everyone who witnessed his career and taught them that the secret to being truly extraordinary is within you. You just have to gather all of your strength if you want to show it to the world.